house right there. It doesn't have air conditioning. Don't be fooled. There's no air conditioning in that house, but it is a really cool Tudor and it's beautiful.
Welcome to Coffee is for Closers. I'm your host, Tim Brigham, and today we're doing a follow-up with one of the first interviews we ever did with the wonderful Holly Connors.
Thanks for having me. I love hanging out with you.
Thank you.
Great.
During our interview, Holly, you talked about something that was pretty cool, and I would love to hear a real-life example of what you were talking about. You kind of went into, being a specialist in real estate, really knowing your product, knowing your properties, and I think you even said knowing what a house smells like.
That's something I would say. Okay.
Can you explain that to us now that we're here in Arlington Heights with, it's kind of your stomping ground?
Fair enough. I think it's really important to know the inventory, whether it's on or off the market, and to know what blocks flood and what blocks lose power. And that minutia detail is just really impactful to giving your buyer experience really a level up. That combined with your seller experience, knowing who the builder is and were they high-end builder of their time? Is that an old home, a new home? But knowing that inside and out and not having to research it really provides for the client experience.
Yeah, let's do it, right?
Okay.
You know this neighborhood.
Okay.
I want to see you do the thing. So
Random block.
the random block. I'm gonna test you a little bit.
Okay.
So
I like it.
tell me about the street that we're standing on.
So we are in downtown Arlington Heights. Look at this block of these really gorgeous trees. We're on the 400 block of Vale, and a lot of the houses over here are older. They were built at the turn of the century or just after. Some were torn down and new homes were built in the 50s. So we have a really good mixed inventory here. This particular block got new sewer lines in 2013 or 14. So sewer lines here are great. You have a mix of galvanized plumbing in these houses and copper plumbing, but you have copper plumbing lines in the street here. That's important in the suburbs. And then we have few steps to the park, a few steps to South Middle School, knowing that the traffic is here at about 7:30 in the morning and 2:45 in the afternoon is helpful. We've got some really cool, interesting details on this block and what happens around here.
So we've had a few interviews where we've talked with agents that describe their neighborhood, right?
Yeah.
And what they're focused on.
Fair.
You seem to have been in almost every single house that you walk in the street, right?
I have been in quite a few. I've sold about 9 on this block, yeah.
Can you talk about that a little bit? Tell me about what it's like to walk around and see the properties that you've been in and be able to bring that to, your client base.
So some people don't invite me to their house socially because they know I'm walking in and looking around right away. But I think the cool thing about being in these houses, both socially and professionally, is knowing the inventory and knowing what they look like and how they feel and what do they smell like and how's the floor plan utility. What are we talking about inside the homes? Are these well cared for? Those are really important, impactful things to my industry and how we function as agents.
How important do you find the really getting, deep dive into these houses? Some realtors show up and they're more contractual,
Yeah.
right? How do you hone that skill set? How do you know, how to almost act like a plumber, act like an electrician?
Yeah, so I like to say that the first showing is really a mini inspection. And the reason for that is anybody can open a door and tell you the cabinets are white and tell you that the floors are dark or newly finished. I think that's great. That's all very superficial and cosmetic. I think a buyer's broker's responsibility is the ability to walk in and say, this is copper plumbing, this is great, this is galvanized, this connection is wrong, this is the type of electrical panel you have. Those are the details that are really impactful to a buyer, and that helps them understand what they're getting into. Your job as a broker, in my opinion, is to help that person walk in and make the best purchase and the best decision, not to tell them that the cabinets are white. That's visually obvious.
Right. Well, I think that it's important too, as you get into a transaction, of knowing what the risks are, right? Everybody always wants to sell the glitz and the glamour, but they don't really want to talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly. I don't think you're afraid to get into that.
No, and we can even stop here at this particular house at 411. This house was on the market for 3 minutes. We went and saw it. We wrote an offer on it. My clients loved it. It was the perfect fit. it checked every box for them, but superficially it wasn't what they wanted. And so being able to talk through why this was a good house with good bones, but superficially didn't check the box, really worked out. The location sold it for them. And when they did the inspection, their expectations were met. They knew they needed an electric panel. They knew that there was potential 9x9 tiles in the basement. They knew what that meant, and that was a conversation we had. But it wasn't scary to them because they knew walking in.
Yeah, I think that you touch on some great points. Like, as a lender, we get into a deal and we're always waiting for the inspection to come back, and it's like, oh man, is that going to be a challenge? Because we don't know. I don't see the house. I just hear about it, right? Whereas you can walk in and say, hey, just so you know, this is something you want to pay attention to.
Right, that's right. And so they know. So I think my job as the first showing is really a mini inspection. They can come through and say the floor plan utility works for them, or they don't like the lighting, that's fine. That's all changeable and easy. The stuff that's hard, the bones, that's in part my responsibility to help coach them through what they're looking at. Now, I'm not an inspector, I'm not a licensed inspector, but it is my job to at least give them some highlights on what they can expect.
So market conditions, like what are we seeing in Arlington Heights right now? Are you seeing, everybody's talking about the market, oh, we've got these changes, but I'm noticing a clear divide. I've noticed some people are just still very, very, very busy, while others are not, right?
Yeah.
Because it is a hard market, it's challenging.
Right.
But how do some stay busy when others are slowing down?
Yeah, fair question. I think you can stay busy if you're a broker trying to improve your business by just being part of the community. Knowing what's going on in the community is really your best book of business, truthfully. I have believed that in my whole soul. Being a good person in your community is just actually good to do, but also will help integrate you into what's happening in the market.
Yeah.
For me, knowing who's going to sell next, who's thinking about selling, what's happening in their life, did they have a baby? Those are impactful pieces of information to know who's going to sell next.
So what do you work into your business to do that? How do you stay in front of people?
Yeah, I am involved. I volunteer a lot. I'm out in the community. I go to breakfast. I see people I know. I'm a social person, you know that. Like, I like hanging out. I'm fun, or at least I think I'm fun. I don't know, there's probably some people on Instagram saying she is not fun. But I like being fun, and I'm out there.
I can vouch you were fun. It's great.
You can vouch. For me, your question about the market, we still have an inventory issue. We still don't have enough inventory. We're not satisfying demand. Month supply of inventory and absorption rate, all of the data points are really pointing us in the direction of lack of inventory.
Right.
But the pent-up demand that has sort of gotten on the sidelines in the last few months, heading into this beautiful fall weather, they're still sitting in the sidelines, and they are going to be ready to pounce in the spring when I think we will see more inventory. People that are cooped up in their houses for the winter, that don't have enough space, that haven't been able to find what they need, they're going to jump out into the market and sell their homes.
What's interesting is statistically, we have quite a few people, like you said, that haven't made the move yet.
Yeah.
If you're listening to this, here's boots on the ground telling you that we have plenty of demand. It's just it's seed planting time, right? It's not necessarily harvest. There's not necessarily people pulling triggers per se.
Right.
Some are, because they're taking advantage of market conditions, but hopefully rates will come down here shortly, and then all of a sudden we start to see gloves coming off.
Rates are going to matter. I think rates are just fine the way they are. I would love to see them lower. I think that's a benefit to a lot of people, but they're not scary. My first condo, I paid 12.5% interest on my first condo. And it was my first property, and it was a lot of interest, and I thought I would never be able to pay that off. But here we are now, and that condo is worth hundreds of thousands of dollars more than what I paid for it.
Right.
So the market will continue to cycle. People need to move. People need housing. Housing is a necessity of life. Things will move around. It will loosen up, it will shift. What people were doing previously is they were trying to get the best house for the buck. Now they're really thinking about what their long-term needs are and what's really going to satisfy them. So you asked me, what's really happening in the market? Well, buyers and sellers are entering the market space because they were saying, I can only afford X because of the rate. Well, now they can only afford this number because of the rate. They're still making purchases. They're just not purchasing here. We're also seeing slightly longer market times. Now, slightly longer is 7 to 14 days as opposed to hours. That's still
It's insane.
It's a great number. It's still a fantastic number. So buyers who were saying, I have to get into this house right away, I have to buy it, I have to write an offer for $50K over and blah, blah, blah. They're waiting, they're being calm, they're waiting a week, and then they're writing offers.
They're waiting until the weekend.
They're waiting, I know.
Instead of it being,
And that's what we're seeing. And we're seeing this movement and this shift of I'm waiting a few days, and then we're still seeing bidding wars on that weekend. So it's still moving, it's just moving in a different way and a different pace. So that's why the brokers who have been doing this a long time, and those of you who are new, it's important to know what the market is. I've said it for years, real estate is more like the stock market and less like real estate every day because information is so much faster.
Yeah.
How do you feel that one of the hottest topics right now in real estate, we can talk about consumers, we can talk about what's going on in interest rates and those things, but one of the hottest topics or most talked about topics right now is real estate commissions.
That's a big one. Yeah,
big ones.
Yeah.
And most consumers don't understand what's being proposed or what's going on right now. Would you care to expand on that?
There have been some lawsuits about buyer commission in other states, and the National Association of Realtors has been involved. At a very high level to explain it, or my understanding of it is, there have been some buyers that felt like commission wasn't explained and how commission is paid out. Okay, fine, fair thing to say. I think that there have been some conversations on how buyer commission needs to be talked about to buyers and what's really happening in the market and how brokers like myself are getting paid when you represent a buyer. And I think that's a fair conversation. I think that's a reasonable expectation of the consumer to understand how do I get paid? I think that's a fair thing to ask.
Yeah.
That's it.
It reminds me a little bit, and forgive me, like my ignorance with this whole side, because I don't deal with realtor commissions, but it reminds me kind of like the subprime days where we got kind of held to a standard for, buyers would show up to a closing and find out how much their closing costs were. They didn't know until the day before. So
Right.
maybe there needed to be further dialogue on this. And what are your thoughts on what happens in the future because of it?
Yeah, I think that there should be clearer pictures. I think that consumers aren't totally understanding, and that's because brokers haven't explained it. And so shame on us for not being clear and concise. And now we have to go be more clear and concise. And I think that's okay. If you can articulate your value to your buyer and you're bringing value to the table other than opening a door, there's no reason why you can't ask to be paid.
Yep.
A lot of agents are struggling with, this whole new idea that buyers are going to be responsible for their side of the commission, whereas right now in the current environment, sellers pay both the seller commission and the buyer's commission. How do you think that's going to impact transactions, and how are you going to survive?
Let's clarify that a little
Sure.
bit, because the seller pays a commission to the listing brokerage. The listing brokerage decides how they're going to split it.
Right.
So the seller doesn't pay the buyer's broker. The seller pays the listing brokerage, and that listing brokerage pays the buyer's brokerage.
Right. Okay.
And that chain is important for legal reasons.
Okay.
What is being proposed now is that buyers will pay the buyer side of the buyer brokerage commission. And there's an argument to be said that it will artificially deflate markets.
Okay.
And I don't know that that's true. I don't know that artificially it deflates markets. The complicated part to you is the lending side, is how do you put that line item on the HUD, on the CD, to charge the buyer back? Well, I've done it a few times with deals with you, and it is a little trickier, and underwriters don't like to see it and they don't want to see it, but I think the world is going to change. Much like you referenced before, when we had to disclose the GFE, now we have to maybe disclose all of these moving parts as well.
I think the communication standards are everything, right?
Totally.
I mean, when you and I have a transaction where that's a thing, you call and say, hey, listen, just so you know, pay attention to this. But also too, I read contracts, right?
Right.
And a lot of these people, they'll put something together and they think that hiding it's the best way to, we'll just get to the end. Communicate, just let everybody know what's going on. And I agree, they always find a way. Just like we saw with previous transactions, maybe that's where this starts turning into lender credits or something along those lines.
We can figure it out.
Right.
Yeah,
It'll
we can
always
always
be
figure it
solved.
out. We just have to talk about it. Just
Right.
have to talk about it and be communicative. And I think that's the whole point of this lawsuit, is buyers have felt like they haven't been communicated with. They don't feel like they have all the information. And that's an important part of the process.
So listen, you're busy during a slow period. You obviously know your stuff, right? I want to call you out a little bit though. You kind of said that you knew, more than your average realtor. It's true. I could vouch for that. But would love to see you in action. How do you think we can pull that off?
Well, do you want to see some really messed up plumbing?
Let's do it.
Okay.
Okay, so we're in a basement, Do your thing. Let's see you realtor it up.
All right. So when we come into a basement first with a client, we talk about the plumbing, and then we talk about the electrical, we talk about the HVAC. Those are the three real big components.
Yeah.
So here, the furnace is relatively new, and I know that because we've already checked it out and looked at the serial number. The water heater, you can always tell the age of a water heater. It's on the label, and it'll tell you exactly how old it is. This guy happens to be 6 years old, so that's good. That's relatively new. And then we'll talk about the type of plumbing and what does that look like. Now, this is galvanized plumbing and it connects to copper plumbing, and that's not ideal, but it's better than all galvanized, and pointing that out to the client, I think, is something that they would like to know. And then simple things like over here, there's an electrical box, and this electrical has some BX and conduit, and it really shouldn't be BX that long. It really should just be hard conduit. So those are just things we want to talk about. It's not life-changing. The house isn't going to fall down. The house is really good. It's in good condition, but these are just some things that I think buyers, brokers should be able to articulate and be able to talk about. So again, I'm not an inspector, but I can read a label, and buyers don't necessarily know how, right? They don't.
And I'm sure you have resources too to say, okay, so in the future, if this were to be a thing, I've got a person that can help you with the thing, right? And that's the biggest thing that I think realtors sometimes kind of skip over or gloss over and say, well, yeah, we have a challenge, but we really have to be service related, right?
Agreed.
We have to provide solutions for people.
Yeah.
You're really good at that. So.
Solutions is my game.
Right.
You got a problem, I already know what's up, man.
It's amazing. Amazing.
So this is just one really simple example of what, we're looking for in a house and what we're talking about in the suburbs. Now, for the city people, this may not be part of their conversation because that's not their market. I don't know, I don't sell there, but in the suburbs, this is what we talk about.
How did you get so good at recognizing these things? Obviously transactional stuff, but did you do any type of training or anything, or how did you figure this out?
I spent a lot of time listening to inspectors, hanging out at houses, and then about 12 years ago, I wanted to remodel my house and I felt like I was being taken to the bank. So I decided to learn it all and finish the job myself. And now I've done lots of projects myself, lots of flips myself.
Okay, you've done some rehabs and some flips, I know.
Two tree.
So this is the entry level of what you were describing.
Yeah.
Do you have any other examples of maybe something a little shinier?
Yeah, I do. We got shiny. You want shiny?
I want to see shiny.
I got shiny. We are on the south side of town near downtown Arlington Heights. We are at a 3-bedroom, what used to be a 3-bedroom, this used to be a 3-bedroom, 1.5 bath ranch. And my clients trusted me when I told them they had to buy this location. They have been living here. They love it, love it, love it. They have gone ahead and renovated the whole house. And because our first showing, we were clear, the electrical, the plumbing, the sewer, all had to be done. They knew going in what their expenses were gonna be.
Awesome. I'd love to see it.
Let's check it out. Hi, well, come on in.
Wow.
Isn't this
You weren't
great?
kidding. This is beautiful.
So this started originally as a very small itty bitty little kitchen with walls. There was no window here. It was tight. It was not well lit. And the client completely trusted me to advise them on how to lay this out and transform this into a home from an unfunctional ranch to a very functional long-term housing solution.
You can see it's a great use of space.
Thank you.
You can see how,
Thank
framing that out. I can't even imagine what it was before, because how would you use it? Right?
It was terrible.
Right.
The lime green carpet was also awesome, by the way.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
No, you can't even tell it was there anymore.
No.
That's great.
Yeah.
Walk me through it. So what did you guys do?
Yeah,
Show me
so we took out a wall between the kitchen, what was the kitchen, and a dining room. There was a bedroom there that we opened up, and we did remove a bedroom, which a lot of realtors will tell you that's a terrible, terrible idea. In this case, it was a great idea because we were able to get the expansion that we needed. We were able to add a bathroom. We got in a primary suite, closet space, lighting. I mean, we did all the things here. So why don't we check out the basement where I can show plumbing, electrical, and where we did the real work.
Love it. Let's do it.
This is where the magic happens.
Yeah.
Now, most people come in this room and they go, ugh, it's just a laundry room. But I see the broken concrete where we broke up concrete to put in all new sewer lines. I see a brand new ejector pit and beautiful PVC plumbing. I see a brand new 220 electrical panel. I see copper plumbing that's properly soldered and labeled and the valves are in the right place. I see a beautiful new water heater and a really impressive new furnace and air conditioner on the outside. I see brand new ductwork. I see ductwork that's been cleaned. I see clean floors. I see a house that's been really loved, maintained, and upgraded.
You know what's crazy is that you can walk into a home and just love the character and love everything about it. But if you don't understand what you're looking at here, because you and I see dollar signs, right? If this is not done the right way, if you've lived through something that doesn't have the right stuff, you realize, well, the house may be great, but I can't use the toilet. I can't use the dishwasher. That's a huge problem. This is all done the right way, and it's so exciting and nerdy to see, but it's
I'm
really
super
cool.
nerdy about it. Yeah, so the kitchen here is gorgeous, right?
Yep.
It's pretty, it's upgraded, it's got all the things, but the real bones here, the well-built house and the bones of this house just make this so valuable.
If you're getting anything out of this, I would love for you to click subscribe down below, click a like, click a follow. We would love to feed you more of this for your career, give you more value so that way you can continue to improve. Thanks for watching.